Now we get into the heart of investment. A lot of people ask me why I spend so much of time abusing various people in my own line of business. The answer is very simple. This, what has gone by so far, is the most important piece of advice that I can give you. The financial services industry is not your friend. It is not your friend. There's a corollary. Are they all crooks? No. There are several good people. You will not meet them. That's the whole problem. You will not come into contact with the good people. Why? The good people don't need you. They will not sell. They will not sell. If you need them, you will have to find out who they are. You will have to go and meet them on their terms and conditions. Who are the people who will approach you? The people who are not good, because they don't have business. They need to sell. Somebody is driving them. This is something that we have to understand. And if we can understand this much, then we will know what the whole game is that is being played. And then we will manage to actually try to go in search for the good people. Register with them. Evaluate their advice. Never take anything just because you have heard somebody is good. You don't take it blindly. You evaluate it from your own knowledge. And the best insurance that you can ever take is to raise the level of your own knowledge, like you are doing by attending these kind of sessions, and perhaps read a few good books. John Templeton. We'll start with John Templeton when we get into investment. An investor who has all the answers doesn't even understand all the questions. We start at a very low level where we have to admit that there are many things we do not know. And having started with that admission, we try to collect some knowledge. Are we going to progress much higher than that level? I am afraid not. I've been reading about investment probably from my PUC days, so about 16, maybe about 35, 36 years, 37 years perhaps. I still consider myself only a student of investment, because you never stop learning. Every day you learn from books, you learn from events, you learn from students, you learn from clients. It's a loop. It's not one way. It's always a loop. There are people who have asked me excellent questions because of which I have learned. There are people who have given me a differing point of view which I have accepted, because I found that differing point of view better than the one I held till then. We can never say that we know everything. We can never say even after decades in a profession that we know everything, because human situations, economic situations, technology situations are fluid. They are dynamic. They change. Laws change. Tax laws change. Never think that we have all the answers. As John Templeton, who was a giant of investing in the last century, he says, an investor who has all the answers doesn't even understand all the questions. Now let us come to some very fundamental concepts about investment. And the first concept is that all investment must form part of a plan. If you do not have a plan for your money, money is rotting in the savings account. And without a plan, just because somebody comes and tells you something, you're putting that money into some investment or some avenue, I'll call it, not even an investment. It is like taking out your garbage at night and dumping it into the garbage bin. It is a total waste. The tragedy is you will not realize that it's a total waste at that time. You will realize that it's a waste a little later, and generally when it is too late. So all investment must form part of a plan. There should be no investment at all that is made without a plan. It is never too late to plan. If you start early, it is fabulous. There's nothing like it. We always tell people who are coming to meet us in their mid-20s, you have the luxury of time. But just because somebody failed to do this, it doesn't mean you can't start at some point of time. A friend of mine who's now expired several years back, I still remember, he had worked abroad Then he came to India. Unfortunately made the mistake of starting some business. Somebody cheated him there. Lost a good deal of his savings and was hard up. And was hard up probably at the age of something like 53 or 54. He had come early on some sort of an early retirement because his family situation here needed him to be here. So now what to do? He said, the only thing that I can do is I can write back to my company abroad and see whether they will give me a job again. So he called the company, and the HR manager there didn't know him, but he gave his old employee number, and the HR manager said, I will call you back in 24 hours. In 24 hours, the manager calls back because he has seen this person's employee track record, and he was a superlative employee. He says, by all means, you are welcome back. Not as a direct employee, we can't employ you as a direct employee, but we can get you in through a contractor. You will still get a reasonably good pay package. So the man went back, worked for 5 or 6 years, and almost touching 60, he came back. And then he came to see me, and he said, I've made some money, I've got something, I've paid off all my debts. Now I'm 60 or 61. Yes, I've attended some of your talks on financial planning, investment planning. But at 60, do you think it's worth it? That's when I told him this. It is never too late to plan. So we did a plan for him. He started investing. In that time, his children slowly got on their own feet. 7 to 8 years later, he unfortunately contracted cancer. And within about 2 years, he died. And he was a very close friend. So I used to always visit him in the hospital towards the end. And a very brave man. He was not at all afraid of death. He would have, and very humorous also. So everybody who went there to visit him in the hospital came back generally laughing. And he told me on one occasion, you remember about 7-8 years back I had come to you. I was just back from the Gulf. And I asked you, at this age, is it worth starting planning at 60, 61? You said, yes, it is never too late to plan. He said, I wanted to tell you that you are right. Because what we did in the last 7 or 8 years, it has benefited me now. I can pay my bills, even my medical bills. I have left something for my wife. In the meantime, my children are now on their own feet. So at that time, it didn't make sense to me. Yes, you told me it's never too late to plan, but I said, what is he saying, never too late? At 60, 61, it's a normal retirement age, and then I'm starting to plan. But he said, in 7 or 8 years, I found the benefit. So it is never too late to plan. Having a plan without the money to invest is better than having the money to invest without a plan. This is absolutely true. You have a plan, you're a student. You have a plan. I know how to invest if I had the money. When the money comes, you will know exactly what to do. The money will not be wasted. It will go according to your plan, or at least what you have in mind. You do not have a plan and come into money, whether by employment or inheritance or gift or whatever it is. You can be dead sure that that money will be wasted. There is a very interesting study, but I can't get the name now, of people who have won lotteries. Money just fell into their lap. It happens very rarely, but there was a study of people who have won lotteries. Almost in 100% of the cases, they found that these people's wealth steadily decreased over the years. It didn't increase. And when I'm talking about lotteries, I was talking about substantial sums. And when they investigated, one of the main reasons was, yes, the inflow of money was unexpected. But they didn't know what to do with this unexpected money that had come. Which means they had no plan for it. They had no concept of, okay, I've got a windfall, how do I deal with it? I've got an inheritance, how do I deal with it? What do I do? Do I blow it up? Or do I invest it? Do I have no change in my lifestyle? Or do I upgrade my lifestyle? To what extent do I upgrade my lifestyle? Is it sustainable? These questions were never asked. There was no plan. So this is a very, very true saying. Having a plan without the money is fine. Having the money without a plan can lead to utter wastage. Investment principles are universal. Investment plans are unique. Now, regardless of what your qualifications or knowledge is, the good news is that at the personal level, investment is a very easy subject. Very easy, not involving maths, complicated things. Actually, it involves a little bit of logic and common sense, nothing more than that. And these principles are very easy to learn. Using those principles, we derive unique plans because people's situations may be unique. Let me give you an example to understand this. Take two families. Each family has 4 members, parents and 2 children. Ages of the parents more or less the same, ages of the children more or less the same. In both cases, both parents are working and earning. Incomes are similar, lifestyle levels are similar, expenses are more or less similar. In short, when you compare these two families, you find that one family is a replica of the other. You may think, okay, one investment plan that fits family A would also be good for family B. But let us assume that family A has either already purchased a house or an apartment or inherited a house or apartment. Family B has not done so. Suddenly, you will see a fundamental shift in the investment planning between these two people. For the family that has already got its own owned dwelling place, the acquisition of further real estate may not be very important. It is certainly not a priority. For the other family, all the time they may be thinking of at some point of time we have to make our own house or buy a flat, how do we go about it, how much can we afford to put in, how much do we take as a housing loan, and what will be the EMIs, and can we afford it based on our current income streams. And having taken the EMI, can we also provide for other expenses? These questions will be regularly raised. So one small change like that, although the two families look the same when you see them overall, it can fundamentally alter the financial plan. So investment principles, the principles we use to draw up a plan are universal. It's the same. The same principles that apply in India will apply in UK, whether with the Brexit or without Brexit, will apply in the United States, will apply in any country where there's a reasonable market economy. But the plans are unique because human beings are unique and human situations are unique. This is very, very important to understand. So this is a very important slide which introduces us into the very important core of personal investment. All investment must form part of a plan. It is not too late to plan. If you have done it early, fine. Not done it, start sometime. Plan is important. Even if you have a plan, the knowledge, when the money comes, it will be correctly invested. You have money and no plan, you can be sure that it will be squandered. Principles are universal, but plans, each plan is different. That is why I am against, you will find these advertisements for software, personal financial planning software. What we are trying to do is, we are trying to convert human beings into some sort of industrial product. Okay, just dump them in, one plan for it, keep on inputting data this side, that side a plan gets printed out. You are trying to model something, you are trying to put everybody there. That is where all these personal financial planners fail. The important thing is understanding each person's unique situation, not understanding the general situation. Understanding the unique situation and formulating a plan accordingly. This very simple graph from Carl Richards beautifully explains what exactly is wrong in the financial services industry. In financial services, the focus is here on the product always. Is it an insurance policy, a mutual fund, something else? A mutual fund comes out with a new scheme. It is sold. It has to be sold. Money has to be collected. Does it fit into a plan? That question is not asked. If you compare the whole investment planning process to the construction of a building, what is happening in the financial services industry today is, we are trying to have a second floor without having a foundation. So we are trying to reach here, ignoring this. The plan is the foundation. The plan is the most important. The product is only a means to an end. The objective is here. The most important thing, you will find me using after this repeatedly the word objective. Sometimes you will also find me using the word principle. Because the objectives of investment are so important that we sometimes call them the principles of investment. Regardless of which term I use, I myself use them interchangeably. Principles or objectives, they are essentially aims, objectives of investment. And those objectives of investment are not decided by products. They are decided here. Now, after this, there is a process. Even after the plan, the product is not important. Because next is, after my plan, I have to implement the plan, for which I decide about a process. And then I choose the required products, the required strategies, the required avenues of investment in order to implement the plan. But when we look at the way financial products are marketed, this is the start and finish of the whole operation. Nobody is bothered about this, nobody is bothered about this. So just like you cannot, it's an impossibility to have a second floor without a foundation or a ground floor or whatever it is. You cannot have just the sale of a product without an underlying plan. The plan is important. What is investment? I am a person who, whenever I want to understand a concept, I do not start with management or finance textbooks. I start with a pure and simple dictionary, nothing more than that. And the dictionary tells you that investment is the deployment of money or capital in order to gain returns through one or more among profits, interest, income, rent, or appreciation in value. This is what an investment is, and I am more than satisfied with this definition. I am more than satisfied with this definition because I have found this definition better than whatever you will get in the investment textbooks. I have always believed that if you start your own business, the money that you put into the business, the time that you spend on the business, the effort that you put into the business, the expertise that you build up running the business is an investment. And this definition tells us that it's the deployment of money or capital. Generally, the word capital is used when we talk about an enterprise. What are the returns? Money or capital, when you sink into something, the returns are one or more among profits. So they are including, the dictionary is including a business in the definition of an investment. Profits, interest, income of any other sort, rent, or appreciation in value. One or more among. And several of these give you at least two. A good equity portfolio, a good piece of real estate can give you two things. They can give you rent or dividends. They can also give you long-term appreciation in value. So it is one or more among. A beautiful definition. I have not felt the need to look beyond this. This is investment. And as you can see, there's a very important implication of this definition. The deployment of money, not the dumping of money. Deployment. If you think back, where is this term most used? It is used in the military sphere, troop deployment, not troop dumping. A commanding officer does not send troops and equipment to a particular area just because he has the authority to do so. There is a plan. They call it the battle plan or order of battle plan. According to that, how are we going to respond to an offensive or defensive situation? How do I deploy? I don't dump troops somewhere. So the deployment means that I am doing something according to a plan. Since this dictionary definition, I have reflected much over this definition, and I didn't find anything better than this to convey in one simple, slightly long sentence what investment is. Personal investment planning, which is the subject of my entire these series of talks. What is it? It is the arrangement of one's financial affairs to meet, fulfill, attain or actualize the objectives of investment. This is what investment is. We try to become investors by a process called personal investment planning. And in personal investment planning, all we are trying to do is understand two things. What are the objectives of investment? This is not the objectives, this is the definition of investment. Please note, this is the process. What are the objectives of investment? Number two, how do I fulfill them? What are the objectives? How do I attain those objectives? This is all. And moving ahead, objective is so important. Somebody says an investor without investment objectives is like a traveler without a destination. And a very famous baseball player, American baseball, he died recently. If you don't know where you are going, you will wind up somewhere else. Yogi Berra was a very famous athlete, and he had some sort of a defect where his tongue would slip many times. So with slip of the tongue, he used to utter words that he didn't intend to, but they still made sense. So this makes sense in a roundabout sort of way. If you don't know where you're going, you'll wind up somewhere else. And just for your knowledge, he had many of these kind of sayings which caused much amusement and entertainment. But in his profession, he was top class. He was a top class baseball player of yesteryears. He died recently. Let's now understand the objectives of personal investment planning. And these are very simple. There are just 4 of them. The first is to increase wealth and not just income. The second is to earn the highest possible tax efficient income. The third is to maintain the maximum possible liquidity in your investments. And the fourth is to ensure the safety of your investments. That's all. Little bit of focus on building wealth, not just earning income. Second, when you earn income, try to be tax efficient. See whether you can reduce tax, legally, of course. Third is, try to be liquid, quickly able to change one thing to another or to encash something. And fourth is to ensure the safety. And in the remaining part of today's session, and in the 2 or 3 more talks I may need to complete this whole series, I am only going to be talking about these 4, taking them one by one, examining them and analyzing them and telling you what are the insights that lie behind these 4 superb principles of investment. Nothing more is needed. Nothing more is needed. So let us take straight away the first objective, the increase of wealth, not income. This is nothing new. People have known this for a very long time. There are traditional avenues of investment that people have tried to acquire in order to increase their wealth. And the traditional avenues were 2, real estate and gold. As humans evolved, they tried to stake out more and more land, calling it, this is mine, I will defend it, I will own it, I will carry on operations on it, mainly farming and rearing animals. Precious metals, including gold, the very early currencies were nothing but solid pieces of some precious metal, mainly gold. So these were the 2 traditional avenues. You have modern avenues. Today you have got stocks, you have got stock mutual funds, you have got real estate investment trusts, REITs, popular in the United States. Here, of course, they have not developed so far. You also have avenues of fancy, antiques, art club memberships, vintage cars, stamp and coin collections, so on and so forth. Now, when all the great investment writers advise, they generally disregard this. Because when we advise something, it should be what every normal individual can invest in. I may know somebody who is a very, very passionate collector of stamps and coins. I may have no interest in it. Now, even if this person has a very valuable stamp collection, he cannot just register with a stockbroker, press a button and sell his stamp and coin collection. It's not traded on the equity markets. He will have to now find another buyer who will examine his collection, decide on how valuable it is, and then bargain for a proper price and then sell it. So liquidity is hampered very badly. So avenues of fancy exist, but we do not advise any of them for the common investor. Why I am telling you this is, in the recent years, there is now a craze for something called AIFs, Alternative Investment Funds. From very old wine to art to all these kind of avenues of fancy, they are supposed to hire experts who will tell you which artist will be tomorrow's MF Hussain, and buy the art collections now and keep them and one day sell them, and you buy only the units in the fund. They will of course charge you a fee for managing the fund. My advice is, do not touch any of these. The normal investor does not need them. The normal investor does not need them. These are not liquid. People's fancies can change. Just look at fashion. Fashion comes, fashion goes. It does not endure, it does not remain. Somebody may even, I've seen people, 20, 30 years back, something was the rage, a particular type of attire was the rage. Today, when someone looks at those same photographs 30 years back, they laugh. So these can change, and these will affect avenues of fancy. So when we talk about investments, we talk about standard investments that everybody can acquire, everybody can get a little basic knowledge. Avoid these things, avoid things like alternative investment funds. Let's take the first avenue and go a little further. The first objective of investment is to increase wealth and not just income. Why? This is important. Why? Everybody knows. I don't have to tell you that you have to increase wealth. If I say, should you increase your wealth? You'll say yes. If you say no, I think you must see a therapist. Why is important? Many of us do not know why we should increase wealth. It is because these two concepts of income and wealth have certain common enemies. There is a never-ending war between income and wealth on the one hand and these common enemies on the other hand. What are these common enemies? Mainly there are three. The first is inflation, the second is taxation, the third is expenditure. Income is attacked by these three, wealth is attacked by these three. As the war progresses, considerable damage is done by these three concepts to both income as well as wealth. But of the two, is there one doing better? Is there one doing worse? Yes. Of the two, we find that the damage caused to income is much more than the damage caused to wealth, especially over a long period of time. Look at anybody who has held an equity portfolio without trading, just buy and hold for 3 decades, 4 decades. They have grown enormously wealthy. Why? The returns on that equity portfolio have exceeded the inflation rate. Ditto for real estate. If you bought a reasonably good piece of real estate the kind of appreciation you've got over the last 3 decades or 4 decades in India has been enormous. In some places it would have been more, some places less. But on the whole, you can be sure that you would have comfortably beaten inflation. But income, I am earning 30,000 rupees per month salary this year. After 1 year, I am very happy to see that I've got a 10% increment. I go to 33,000. But during that 1 year, inflation has been 10%. I find that I can manage my last year's lifestyle, but there's nothing else that I can do. So sometimes I ask myself, what was the use of this 30,000 becoming 33,000? In no way is my lifestyle increasing, or I can't save more, or I can't save less. My expenses also have increased proportionately because my increment equaled inflation. So I'm running but remaining in the same place. Let's go to taxation. This is inflation. John Maynard Keynes, one of the greatest economists of the last century, he said, by a continuing process of inflation, governments can confiscate secretly and unobserved an important part of the wealth of their citizens. In fact, a lot of people call inflation a tax. It is a tax, you are not aware that you are paying it. The tax is being cut from your wealth. Your wealth is decreasing because of inflation. If you read some of the foreign textbooks, they many times refer to it as the inflation tax. So some government that is not controlling inflation is actually taxing you to that extent. John Maynard Keynes warns us about this. If inflation continues to soar, you are going to have to work like a dog just to live like one. A lot of people have experienced this. Zimbabwe, for example, where inflation was uncontrolled. There was a standard joke about Zimbabwe when the inflation started getting into the millions of percentage. So morning to evening there was a huge change in price. So the joke at that time was, if you are carrying a large suitcase full of Zimbabwe currency, somebody will come, knock you on the head, take your suitcase, open the suitcase, throw out all the money and take the suitcase and go, because that was more valuable than the currency. This can happen in a situation where we have what is called hyperinflation, uncontrolled inflation. John Templeton, any investment strategy that fails to recognize the effect of taxes and inflation, fails to recognize the true nature of the investment environment, and thus is severely handicapped. It is vital that you protect purchasing power. I have made that in bold there. It is vital that you protect purchasing power. We are talking about investment planning. We are talking about an objective called the increase of wealth. We are now trying to understand why the increase of wealth is important. And the increase of wealth is important because it is vital that you protect purchasing power. Your plan has to take this into account. When this is so vital, if you do not do that, what happens? Any investment strategy that fails to recognize the effect of taxes and inflation, fails to recognize the true nature of the investment environment. What is the true nature of the investment environment? You have heard the saying, you can't escape death and taxes. You can't escape inflation also. So the true nature of the investment environment is, there will always be taxes, there will always be inflation. Having recognized this, we have to put in place strategies that will give us a return, that will leave us something after inflation and taxation have been taken into account. This is the important part of it. The beautiful saying from John Templeton. Taxation is almost universally lower on wealth-enhancing assets than on income-generating assets. Not just in India, but everywhere else. In all the developed countries, in several developing countries, the capital gains tax, which is imposed on wealth assets. You sell land, it's not income tax, unless of course it's short term. But the long term, the capital gains tax rate will be lower than the highest level of income tax. Today in this country we have got the highest tax rate of 35.54% for those earning more than 1 crore per annum, 30.9% for those earning more than 10 lakhs per annum. The maximum rate of capital gains tax is 20%. And when I say 20%, it can be slightly misleading. The government gives you several avenues or several ways in which you can reduce that tax rate and also sometimes save on capital gains taxes by investing in certain bonds and other things. So, to cut a long story short, the taxes on wealth generating assets are lower than on income generating assets beyond a certain point. Expenditure. Beautiful saying here, money in the bank is like toothpaste in the tube. Easy to take out, hard to put back. It is easy to spend. And a lot of us spend needlessly. I'm not against spending when you need to spend. But spend needlessly and then regret it. But you can't put the toothpaste back into the tube. Wealth is damaged by inflation, taxation and expenditure to a much lesser extent than income. Expenditure is more of a psychological concept. If you have a plan, there will not be extra money in your savings account. Whatever comes there, as per the plan, will be deployed. If you do not have a plan, I have seen people needlessly accumulating huge amounts in the savings account. You know how easy it is to spend from a savings account. Debit card, credit card, your checks, you can simply withdraw whatever you want. There are numerous ways in which you can blow up that money. But when people have got these large amounts there without a plan, they tend to be careless about expenditure. Whereas, if the money goes into proper investments, you will think twice before liquidating an investment for normal expenditure. If I've got a lot of money in the SB account, I may eat in a 5-star hotel. But supposing that is in a government bond or a bank fixed deposit, generally people will hesitate to liquidate prematurely the bank fixed deposit to eat in a 5-star hotel. They may liquidate it if it is for an important purpose like paying for a child's education, not otherwise. So, it's a bit of a psychological concept. When you have your plan, the plan says that the required money goes into investments. Once they go there, you are tempted not to touch that money for normal expenditure. Financial security is driven by total wealth, not current income. What's the conclusion? The lesson to be drawn from the first objective of personal investment planning is that every investor must reserve some part of her savings for investment in wealth enhancing avenues. This is the first and most important objective of investment. Some part of my savings must go into wealth enhancing, not income generating avenues.